This is Securing Success, where we get to know the professionals that make up the cybersecurity sector. Today, we're talking to the CMO of Legit Security, Dave Howell. Dave, what's happening, man?
Hey, thank you for having me, Mark. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on. There are a lot of things I want to talk about. We'll see what we can fit into the time frame today. But first and foremost, I want to congratulate you on landing the CMO gig at Legit. And
Thank you.
based on everything we've talked about, it sounds like the company's got some legs.
It does. It's been 1 month under my belt here, but the team is fantastic. Very excited about the technology. Spent a lot of time talking with customers over the past few weeks, and I think we're onto something. Very much looking forward to the year ahead.
That's so awesome. I want to talk about that, but because we've known each other a while, I got to ask you, do you ever reflect and think like, whoa, I'm a C-level executive in the cybersecurity startup game? Is that something that you spend time on as you kind of go through your daily motions or sit around on the weekends?
I do sometimes. So, it's interesting, Mark. I've spent the majority of the early part of my career in larger organizations. So I was with RSA Security before and after the EMC acquisition, then with Raytheon for a number of years, then with ForcePoint. And by the time I left ForcePoint, I was really interested in giving the earlier stage companies a go. And for the past 5 years, that's really what I've been focused on. And it's been a lot of fun. I love the speed. I love the agility. I love the camaraderie that's built as you're really working to build something together. And I'm proud to be here and to get to work with such really solid professionals across the executive team and across the marketing organization as well.
So how's that happen? You gave a quick snippet into the evolution of your career, but how's Dave Howell find his way in the industry and eventually into a CMO seat? Because I'm sure a lot of people are curious, how do I do the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the frustrating answer is there's no one answer. I began my career on the PR agency side, so I spent about 7 years in communications, which, from my perspective, I think that's a great starting point for any marketer. You learn strong written, verbal communication skills. You learn how to really understand how to work with clients, and regardless of whether you're in an agency or in-house, you have clients to delight. And that really got me interested in then exploring how I could broaden my skill set and experience out. And then my goals with the following roles I took were really just to take on areas of responsibility that I hadn't covered before. So to really take on stretch positions that may have been challenging in terms of my experience and what I knew, but that gave me the ability to build a fuller resume of experience. And that's really what I've intended to do. So I think now that I'm with a smaller, earlier stage company, it gives me the ability to take what I learned across the various marketing domains and then with large, mid-size, and smaller companies and bring it all together to really help to build the strategy that's right for Legit, which won't be right for necessarily every other early stage company.
So it sounds like, and I want to double click on this, it sounds like you kind of had a vision of how you were strategically going to grow and expand your skill set and your career as a professional marketer. So when you went through those motions, you're like, I got to take those stretch positions. Was that because you envisioned one day you wanted to be a CMO, or what got you started on this path to leadership and sitting in this seat?
That's a great question. So I don't know that being a CMO or SVP of marketing was necessarily the understood or acknowledged goal at the time. But what I did know was that I loved communications and I loved what I was seeing in other areas of marketing and that I wanted to really grow within that domain more broadly. So when opportunities to take on a product marketing role arose, that seemed like a great opportunity to, again, take some of the core foundational skills and experience I had and move laterally. When the opportunity to take on a team for the first time was offered, that seemed to, offer itself a great chance to expand my management skill set and so on and so forth. So I'll say the intention was always to grow as a leader in marketing, whether it was a CMO or SVP or VP or something else, I don't know and I don't recall. But I think it's
Yeah.
all about taking on, new challenges, things that really push you, get you out of your comfort zone, and really give you the chance to experience new things from a job, from a management, from a team perspective that just build up your entire sort of like leadership DNA. And that's what I think I did with some intention and some good luck.
Okay. And so, is there anything else outside of expanding beyond the comfort zone that an aspiring marketing leader or any type of leader for that matter should consider as they grow their career? Or is really just stretching out in your respective field, is that the solution to growth into leadership?
I think that's an important piece of it. I think the two others I would point to are being very open-minded and being willing to take what you've learned and done in the past and consider it and apply it where it makes sense, but understand that you can't take a playbook from one role or one company and apply it directly to another. You can, but whether that's going to be successful or not is in question. I'd argue most of the time you can't do that exactly as previously prescribed. So that's number two. Number three would be, I think, putting yourself around people, and that can be the people on your team or around you that know more than you do in certain domains. So I can tell you in my previous role, I had a director of demand gen who was a absolute rock star, was unbelievable. And I learned so much from him that I did not know before. And so I think being really open and recognizing that no one knows everything, no one has every, bit of expertise in every domain, will put you in a position to learn more quickly. And I think it helps your teams to see that they are truly value both to the organization, but to you as their leader.
You brought up a really good point where, and I think certain leaders in general, especially with how quickly this industry has changed, have been challenged by this. And the point that you just brought up, at least what I heard, was that you can't you can't take playbooks and move them from place to place, environment, right? Things change really quickly in tech right now. Times are different.
Sure.
So you joined a month ago. You joined this company, Legit Security, a month ago. Um, how do you go about planning for success in a role like this? What do you do if you
Uh,
can't? Yeah, I'm sure you can borrow from certain playbooks, but what's your prescribed method here?
yeah, that's a great question. So I think the first thing that needs to be understood is at a broad level, what are the big rocks that need to be moved in order to help move the business forward? So in this case, it's how do we develop a consistent, productive pipeline motion to help drive pipeline, number one. Number two is how do we create a story that's clear, understandable, and human and relatable to the customer around what Legit Security offers? And so there are others, but I'll leave it with those. So I think it's then if you understand that, it's reaching out into your network to see where there may be opportunities to explore that you haven't before. And I'll say there have been some great CMOs I've talked to over the past month who've given me some wonderful ideas of ways to pursue this. And then it's also looking back into what you've done in the past and seeing where there are pieces that you can take and potentially apply now. But it's, again, I think I'm going to repeat what you said, Mark. It's about not taking the playbook exactly as it was written a year ago and attempting to apply it now, but looking at that, figuring out what makes sense for the environment you're in, for the culture that you're in, for the people that you're working with, and then a combination of that, what you know now and what you're hearing from the outside world. I think together that will give you a much better ability to really define, what are the specific initiatives that we need to stand up to pursue those goals, and then what are the tactical programs or steps we'll take in order to bring that to fruition.
Interesting. And I'm going to say something. It's definitely not intended to, overly fluff you up, but in the time that we've worked together, I see you laughing already. Um, you are a pretty humble guy, right? Like obviously you've been successful, but you mentioned a couple times just now with the demand gen use case, hey, I learned something, or I need to listen to other people. You're talking to other CMOs and you're taking all you can get. And one of the things, when we're talking to candidates for specific searches we're working on, one of the most frustrating things that these professionals are experiencing is that they don't have a voice, their leader is not taking any advice, things don't seem to be working out. And being able to take what you do, absorb what other people are saying, and say to yourself, well, I can learn from this person, even though they report to me. That probably has contributed to your success as well.
Oh, without question. I mean, I think that, I know I'm pretty good in a number of areas of marketing, and I have blind spots in others. And I think it's about being self-aware enough to understand, where do you have those strengths? Where do you have blind spots? And I think most importantly, you have to trust the people who are on your team to do their jobs and do their jobs well. I think if you roll that back, the other way to look at it is, if you don't trust those people on your team, then the question is, are they right for the team? And I think not every professional is right for every environment. And so I think you have to have a real honest conversation with yourself to determine what that fit needs to look like. But I truly believe I've never met a human being on earth who knows everything, and that we all have something to learn. We all have different experiences, and we all come from different walks of life. And the more that we can bring that to the table, the better the ideas we're going to have, the more creativity we'll have, and the more we're going to be able to collectively, because team matters to me a lot, move the whole business forward, versus attempting to do so in isolation, which tends to not be neither as fun or as productive.
And these are hard things to do. Be self-aware 'cause sometimes, and I can tell you this from my experience leading a very small team, running a small business. It's sometimes you become so self-aware, you're like, ooh, I don't like that part of me, and I got to change it, or I gotta figure out how to do something, or understanding that sometimes it's hard to trust other people to do things, but letting them do it anyway, because that's the only way you're going to scale and grow and be successful. So I think
For sure.
that's a really good comment for anybody that's like, all right, how do I advance, or how do I run a team in the current environment that we live in right now? My opinion, other people can take it for what it's worth, but I'm with you, man. I buy into that.
I mean, I'll tell you, Mark. So one of my favorite things to talk to candidates about are experiences they would share where they failed, where something hasn't worked out, where there was a wonderful idea that just bombed. Because I think what that can show you very quickly is, do people have the ability to, one, recognize that rarely does everything go perfectly? Are they able to admit it? And then more importantly, did you learn from it? So, for the most part, you're not going to get fired if you make a mistake, right? But it's all about understanding, what did we do? What did we get out of it? And did it work or not? And if it didn't work, was it the execution around it? Was the concept? Was it the strategy? Or was it just flawed overall? And that can happen, in which case you don't do it again. So I think it's really important to get to that, because I have spoken to people who have a really hard time coming up with things that went wrong. And to me, that says, you probably need to work on your self-awareness a little bit, or just get comfortable making mistakes. Because if you're uncomfortable making mistakes, you're also not going to push it. You're not going to try to take risks, intelligent risks. You're going to stay in your comfort zone, which again, if you're in a high growth, earlier stage company, we have to take intelligent risks. We have to be a little bolder. We have to push the envelope, because we haven't done this before, right?
Yep.
With this company.
So good. I'm so glad you mentioned that. It wasn't necessarily a subject I was thinking about when I was thinking about the topics for this discussion, Dave, but you know, a lot of people say, well, why is this interviewer going to ask me what went wrong, or where I failed? And people may perceive that to be kind of a gotcha question, but that may be uh, it may be reflecting people's insecurities a little bit. Instead, you gave a great example as to why that question can be productive, both from a learning experience standpoint as well as from an interview standpoint. Who is self-aware? It's a great way to identify self-awareness, especially for a self-aware guy such as yourself, as you go about running your team. So I'm really glad you brought that up.
All right, well, you can recruit me. I can join your team now.
I think you're doing just fine, man. Um, we talked a little bit about the changing nature of cybersecurity and really tech in general, especially since AI in its current form has hit the market. So, do you have a perspective you want to share on the evolution of cybersecurity since you started, and maybe where you think it might be going in the next 5 years or so?
Yeah, it's so interesting. When I was thinking about it, as you were speaking, the first cybersecurity company I worked with was a company called Network Intelligence back in the early 2000s, and they were in the SIM space, and they sold an appliance. So that was back when you would, roll out a server and plug it into a network. And those days
Stone
are
Age.
long gone. Yes, they are. I think the other thing that's changed quite a bit was having, dozens or hundreds of point solutions, point tools or products that achieved one purpose. And those are beginning to come together. Now, what's been really interesting now, and we've talked, this has been a theme, this is not an original thought for a long time, that, moving to platforms. So is there a platform that can deliver multiple capabilities to enable a security team to achieve more with less overhead, less overall investment, et cetera? What I'm seeing now and what I'm hearing from customers is that for the first time, as budgets tighten across the customer base, it's happening to security too. So unlike in the past where security budgets were relatively protected and cordoned off and left alone, that's not the case anymore. So it's driving a different mindset within the security organizations to really look at the need to find capabilities that offer multiple use cases, multiple routes of applicability, so they can get more value out of it. So I truly believe, and I know again, this has been talked about for a while, but I truly believe over the next several years, there will be an effort on the part of the customers to consolidate. There's too many tools, too much data, too much to manage, and their teams are overwhelmed. If they're going to run an effective security program, if they're going to build, an overall governance model for their data, for their infrastructure, et cetera, they've got to be able to do more with less. And so I think these platform plays where you have more capabilities embedded within one offering are going to likely pick up steam.
Okay. Yeah, and it's so interesting because that's been, at least from where I sit, the evolution I see as well. And what we found last year from all the data that we track, the company data we track, I think it was something like 40 something percent of all companies that received funding in 2023 were seed rounds. And so it kind of runs counter to that thought process. I don't disagree. But what I think may be happening is these VCs are essentially acting as incubators now. I mean, it's just an incubation process where some of these bigger platform plays are going to emerge. Some have already emerged. We know who they are. And they're going to be acquiring these for the R&D purposes, while other players may have an opportunity to break into that big platform space. So really interesting. This industry is going to be interesting. I think tech is going to be interesting for the next 5 years because it's going to move so quickly.
Oh yeah, I mean it's moving every day you wake up and there's a new capability, a new focus area, a new way to think about both tech and how do we market in the tech environment. I think that's what keeps it fun, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, you stay static. That's why people like you join startups because you don't want to be static.
Exactly.
It's boring.
Exactly.
Um, so you obviously have a clear perspective on kind of what you think is going on in the security space. You're a marketer, so I wouldn't expect any less. Um, also think you probably are pretty skilled at sniffing out hype versus substance. So, um, with all that said, what's legit doing where you're like, okay, um, I should join this company?
Yeah. So I would say there are three things that I look for and that I found with Legit. And this truly is in priority order. Number one is the quality of the people. So the people that I'm going to work with on the executive team, are they skilled? Are they smart? Are they respectful? And can they engage with each other in what I would perceive to be a healthy, productive manner? So at this stage of my career, politicking, high degrees of nonsense, I have no time for. And so I look for groups of people that really care to work together as a team, as a team, as a team. That matters. Number two is the technology interesting and sitting in a really potentially high growth market? And I saw that with Legit. Legit delivers capabilities that are similar to a company where I worked several years ago, but 5 years later, much more advanced and really eye-watering in terms of what the value that can be derived looks like in a really quick manner. So the people, the market, and then I think the third is what does the overall kind of growth trajectory look like for the company? In this case, Legit has, tier one investors, top tier leadership team, fantastic hires on the sales organization, engineering, product, etc. And these are people who want to win. And so from my vantage point, those are things that come together that say we can grow quickly, take advantage of the market, and do so as a team that enjoys working together, works hard, and does so in a way that's really respectful, productive, and just gets the most out of every single person who's part of the organization.
So give me the high level pitch. What is Legit Security do? What area, what segment of security do they plan, and why is it unique? Again, high level.
Yep. So Gartner categorizes us in the application security and posture management market. So, and then we'll put that to the side. In short, what we're delivering is a platform that allows you to gain complete visibility of your development environment and the degree to which security is applied to it. And so with this overall platform that sits across your dev tools and infrastructure and your security scanning tools, we can give you a complete picture of what developers are doing and when, how, or where security scans and activity are being applied or not. And so this answers a ton of use cases, supply chain security, how do we manage secrets, which are a huge problem? How do we build a secure development lifecycle? How do we ensure compliance with various frameworks like SALSA, SSDF, et cetera? And so there are a bunch of use cases that can be satisfied with this overarching platform for AppSec visibility and governance.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, and you mentioned a whole lot of items that I know certain people would love to have as their own category, right? So supply chain secrets, etc. But it
Yep,
really does fit in that rough AppSec umbrella.
absolutely.
And it sounds like Legit, like we talked about earlier, is potentially satisfying that platform need that customers are wanting. Um, what types of customers are you can you tell me like what is there a specific segment of customer in the market that Legit is targeting at this point?
Yeah, so there are a couple of ways to think about it. So generally speaking, we're going after enterprise and large enterprise customers, and that's where the majority of our customer base sits today. The platform was built for high scalability. So think organizations that have hundreds or more developers on their teams. Then we're really, I think, ideally positioned for companies where building and delivering software is their lifeblood, right? Like that's where they get their revenue. So think tech, SaaS, financial services. Those are key markets we serve. What's been really exciting and very cool as I've gone through the past couple of weeks is interviewing a bunch of customers and talking to them about their experience with Legit. And the three things that stood out are number one, how much they actually truly love the platform and the capabilities. So, quote from one of the CISOs I spoke to was, Legit does what it says it's going to do. And
Well, that's good.
that
Yeah.
is good because it doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
um, Number two is the people within Legit make a huge difference. So about a third of the customers I spoke to said their interactions with the Legit team is what was key to making that final decision to go with us as their provider, right? Because they knew we cared, we were engaged, we wanted them as a customer. And the third is, and this was a fun question to kind of walk through, was so what if we took Legit away tomorrow? How would you feel? And the reactions were fairly emotional at times. It was, like we would roll back to a time where we had to do all this work manually. Our teams would be miserable. And so what that says to me is that this capability has really a truly strategic role within a security program beyond just a tool. So it's I've never actually had such overwhelmingly positive feedback through customer interviews as I have since I came on board at Legit. It's just very exciting to see. I'm thrilled.
It's got to validate your decision a little bit too to join
It
the company.
does. It does. No buyer's remorse. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Good. You mentioned something in that response. So you talk about um, the people, right? I mean, you obviously have to have the tech or the service that will meet a customer's need, and clearly sounds like Legit has that. But people want to work with people they like, and that's so important.
Yep.
It's just so important because it says something, even in this time where tech is taken over, people are trying to apply AI in every way to remove the human element. It's still there. It's still there. As long as humans are part of a purchase or an interaction, in my opinion, and that's why I think I'm going to have a job for a while as a recruiter. Really, I believe it is because people want to interact with humans. They want that empathy. They want to be able to just interact with people they enjoy interacting with. And you take that away, and it's just, it's nothing. I mean, what are we
Yeah.
doing here? So that is so critical. I believe in that wholeheartedly. I love that you brought that up. Um, you mentioned some of the customers you talked to. They were excited about Legit. Um, any customers that you'd want to talk about? Any customers that are either on the website that you guys are proud of? Just, and if not, that's okay. I know sometimes you got to keep that under wraps.
Yeah, so I won't get into the details of those stories, but I'd say if you go to our website, Kraft Heinz has a outstanding case study on our website. Netscope is another customer with a great case study on our website, and there are a handful of others. So certainly go to the Legit Security testimonials page, and you can check them out.
That's great. And I got to say, at your early stage, tell us where you are in terms of maturity and life cycle right now. What stage are you in? What was your last round of funding?
Yep. So our last round of funding in the fall was a Series B of 40 million. So we're about 75 employees today. We just recently opened an office in Boston, which is exciting. I live in the area. So we're building out the go-to-market team in the US. So our CRO, Aaron Cody, is in Massachusetts area as well. Most of the sales folks, marketing, field CTOs are here. And the remainder of the company, so R&D, product, um, operations, et cetera, are all in Tel Aviv. So we're growing quickly, hiring in just about every department, and expect to have substantial headcount growth over the course of this year.
That's fantastic. A $40 million B round for folks that aren't necessarily following it so closely is substantial. And especially in this market right now where investors are definitely interested in investing, but are being super, super focused on making sure they're doing a lot of due diligence. That is an outstanding raise for Legit Security. So congrats to you and the team on that. Um, the other thing I want to bring up is I wanted you to explain where you're at in your life cycle, pretty early stage with the Series B. The fact that you have customers, like you just mentioned, Kraft Heinz, is on your website. They're willing to have that conversation publicly. That is such a big win for a B round startup that just kind of recently raised its B round. So amazing stuff, very exciting. Um, you have been successful, you've grown in your career. This job, right? It's rewarding. You get to be a C-level executive, make some decisions, financially, things go well, it can be rewarding. Um, there's definitely a price to pay, right? I mean, your working hours, you and I are emailing, I'm 2 hours behind you and you're emailing pretty late. So you're putting in the work. Is there something that Dave Howell specifically does to manage that? Is there something you can share with other people like, wow, it'd be cool to be an executive, but do I want to live that life? What would you tell somebody? How do you deal with it?
Yeah, so there are two things that I prioritize for myself to keep my brain in check and to stay both engaged in my personal life, but in my work life. And one is fitness. Unless I choose to do so for whatever reason, I will work out every morning. I do that before I go to work, CrossFit, yoga, anything of that nature. I think it's good for the body, which is good for the mind, and it's cyclical. So that's extremely important to me, and that I will not sacrifice for any role. And the second is getting really involved in my kids. So I coach a lot, mediocre coaching most of the time, but I coach. Until this year, I can't now because I'm ramping up in a new role. For 2 years, I ran a before school fitness wellness program for elementary school children 2 or 3 days a week, which was fun. So finding opportunities to, be with my kids, to support them as they engage with their peers is what does it. And then, just taking time for the family, getting out with my wife and making sure that we enjoy the weekends with our friends and realizing that for me, I don't I don't seek a very distinct work life line in the sand. Let's call it that. I find balance in the ways I need to find balance. So if I choose to cut out early to go do something with my family early on a Thursday, I may end up on the couch doing some work on Saturday afternoon. And that's fine. It doesn't bother me. It may not work for other people. So I think you have to find whatever works for you. But the one thing I would say is do not sacrifice what you need to do in order to keep your brain engaged, your body engaged, and you just generally excited about everything you're doing. Once you lose the excitement and the flame goes out, none of it's going to be particularly productive.
Yeah, you got to be able to lean in. You have to have energy. I'm not gonna lie, I was inspired by you. I saw you at RSA last year. I was like, Dave put on a little bit of weight, right? He's looking fit. And and I've seen that with other executives as well. And it motivated me, right? I see a personal trainer twice a week. I've got other exercises I do. And it's really, I believe it. You don't want to wake up early in the morning and do that stuff. And that's when I have time as well. But you get up, you pump out a workout, whatever type of workout that might be, running, lifting weights, doesn't matter. And all of a sudden, like sometimes I forget to drink coffee because that amps me up. I still like my coffee. But it is so important. I've seen in the past year or so the value of doing that. So I think that's a great point. And the other thing I can relate to is the spending time with kids. I got two kids myself, and I like to win. That's a big thing for me. So even if I didn't have kids, I'd probably still be out there competing and trying to be the best recruiter in the cybersecurity game. But that's motivation. It's like seeing, all right, I got to be successful, not just for me now, but for my children and being and spending the time with them. That kind of resonates. It ingrains the need to be successful. So I love what you're saying. It resonates with me, and I think it should resonate with other people. What type of coaching were you doing or are you doing for your kids right now?
So right now I'm coaching second grade basketball. So it's somewhere a combination between babysitting, wrangling gophers, and coaching where possible. But it's fun. They're cute. They're full of energy. Those kids are ready to go. And then
How often are you doing that?
that's once a week now. Last year I coached my son's junior high basketball team. I've coached my daughter's soccer team. And then that morning program was a lot of fun too. So
Um, were you a basketball player or how do you get into coaching basketball?
fortunately, when they're that age, it doesn't take a lot of skills. So, no, I was a recreational basketball player at best. So
Okay. So you're not like a famous basketball coach. You're just
no, 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 no,
writing
no,
plays down.
no. You're not going to find me in the museum in Springfield, Massachusetts. No.
Okay. Fantastic. What else do you want to say to people about your growth? Anything about Legit that you want to tell people about that I didn't talk about?
I think just for anyone out there who wants to grow their career, I said this before, I'll say it one more time. Just be open-minded. Be open-minded in terms of the roles you take, the feedback you receive, the opportunities that you're afforded, and just take the most of it, make the most of it, and try to learn from everyone you can. There's always something to be learned. There's always value to be consumed. And the more you're open to that, the more you're going to kind of build up your skills, experience, knowledge base to get wherever you want to go in your career, whether it's staying an individual contributor, managing a small team, being an executive at a small company, or running marketing for a giant Fortune 100, right? But all those types of roles can benefit from an open-minded and engaging and just willing to learn type of perspective.
And I'll tell anybody that's watching this recording, um, I've worked with Dave and he lives it, right? Because when I tell him something about recruitment, whatever we might be working on, I give him some data. He leans in. He wants to understand it, and he lives what he's saying. So I've had fun talking to you about this. I think anybody who watched this is going to get some great nuggets about how to advance their career, and also learn a little bit about potential AppSec powerhouse in legit security. So you've got some work to do. I'm
That's
excited to watch the ride, and we'll do this again soon as you continue to grow the company.
awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining me, Dave. I appreciate it, man.